Hey everyone, this video is going to be about definitions and we'll define research. Writing definitions is a good skill to have for research writing. You've probably learned that definitions should be really concise, like they should fit right in a dictionary. The problem with a definition like that is you risk being unclear or inaccurate to a reader. So researchers instead like more detailed definitions. We like to supplement definitions with multiple sentences, examples, or scenarios. We like to take the time to be clear to each other about what we're thinking. Here are some examples of where this idea of more detailed definitions comes into play. The first we have is what is life? That's a very hot topic right now. When we ask what is life, we might think, is it conception? Is it at the heartbeat? Is it sentience of brain waves? Or do we consider viruses or bacterial life if they're moving and eating? However you define life will determine and affect the questions you ask and the research you conduct. Another question is, what is morally right? Is it for the collective good? Is it based on religion? Who determines what is right? How you define that will affect how you analyze or evaluate something. Some other examples would be, what is the purpose of education? What makes someone successful? All these things require a more detailed definition. For this video, I want to practice writing definitions as well as define two essential concepts for the class. Those concepts are research and analysis. So we're going to start with research. So if you go to Google and you look up a definition for research, you'll find something like this. Research, looking up or investigating new information. It's short and concise, but it leaves a lot to be desired. As someone who is a critical thinker, or the mindset of a critical thinker, I'm asking, okay, if I'm looking up new information, what do you mean by information? What kind of information? Why are we looking up information? Does it have to be new? Why can't I look at old stuff? Am I looking up for an answer? If I look up a recipe, is that considered research? There's a lot of things that aren't entirely clear with this definition. So it seems to be, if we kind of boiled it down, like what's missing, this kind of definition is missing an agent, a purpose, and a method. It's missing the who, who's doing research, who would do research. It's missing a purpose, why do we do research, what's the goal, and the method, how do we go about doing research. So, let's write a better definition. To write the better definition, we need to answer those three components. So it'll help us to think or picture something in our head. So join me in picturing research. Who do you picture doing research? What are they doing and why are they doing it? Have that image in your head or write it down so we can hold on to it. So for me, because I'm writing the definition, I picture doctors and graduate students. I picture them like in a lab, getting that data, working hard. But I also picture like in college when you're or a teenager or a parent, they do research such as like, what college should I go to? Or what car should I buy? Or if you're going to have like a kid, like what's the best parenting method for your child? Those are the things I picture with research. So then I have to ask myself, what in all these examples that I'm thinking of research, what agent, purpose, and method do they have in common? Because then I can come up with the most accurate definition while also being detailed. So going through that process, when I was like, what do they all have in common? I came up with this definition. Research is reviewing resources critically with a specific goal in mind and with the intent to reach a conclusion. Does not necessarily guarantee an answer. Sometimes the endpoint is to feel more informed. So to me, that captures like anyone can do research as long as they're reviewing resources critically. That's the method, and they need to have some sort of goal. So let's try this now with the word analysis. What's missing in this definition? So this is a definition I found on like Googling it, and it just says analysis is looking at something critically, delving deeper into something. So again, it's really concise, but it's lacking some details. For example, when it says looking at something critically, what does that mean? Like, do I put on my special thinking glasses and just stare real hard or something? Like, what does it mean to look critically? And it's also missing things like, why am I looking at something critically? What does someone look like when they're analyzing something? Or when do you know you're done analyzing? Another strategy, again, remember, is to picture something, to play a scenario in your head. So I'm going to think of a doctor. I think about doctors, I guess, a lot. I think about a doctor, and if I go to the doctor and I'm like, my hand feels funny, something's wrong with my hand, I know the doctor is going to do some analyses to figure out, like, he's going to have to do an analysis, or they're going to have to do analysis. If they're just looking at something, the doctor will obviously inspect my hand, but I would hope the doctor would do more than just look at my hand. I hope the doctor would run some tests like an x-ray. I hope the doctor would ask me follow-up questions, or maybe a history like, did you fall down and break your hand? So more is going on than just looking at things. So what is going on? How can we more accurately represent analysis? So take some time, try writing a definition, think about who does it, what steps are involved, why we're doing it, what kind of thinking is going on in the brain. That'll help you write your definition. So I obviously did this process and I came up with this definition. Based on like doctors and research or analysis I've done, I think analysis is looking at an artifact beyond its surface level. It's breaking something down into parts in order to see how those parts relate to or impact each other and to make a conclusion. So I think about with the doctor. When they run their tests, they look at my symptoms, they ask me questions. They're breaking down this one condition into parts. And then once they have those parts, they're connecting them, because it's the combination of like jelly hands and my hands being blue that means I broke my hand, versus my hands being really stiff and that being like paralysis or something. Putting those pieces together reaches my like diagnosis or conclusion. But it doesn't have to be, again, just doctors. It could be when you analyze a book or analyze math problems or stats. Whatever the artifact is, you're breaking it down, that's the method, in order to reach a conclusion and connect them, the purpose. Again, I'm going to emphasize, like, this is the definition I came up with, and this is the definition we're going to use throughout the class. When I ask you to analyze something, I'm going to be asking you to break it down, make connections, and make a conclusion. But again, it's what I came up with. Definitions vary slightly person by person, which is why, again, it's so important. I said again like 6 times, I'm sorry. It's why it's so important that you define things, because otherwise you're assuming that your reader or audience knows this when they don't. It's better if we share our ideas, communicate our definitions, and help us kind of grow into a more unified definition. Hopefully this video was good practice for critical thinking to kind of wake you up from summer. But my main goal with it is just to make sure that we understand what research is and what analysis is. I recommend then that you write these definitions down and hold on to them, because they'll be helpful as we go through the class.